Welcome everybody to another episode of Needs Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we go week to week watching one of your streaming favorites, providing some context, some conversation along the way. In today's episode, we'll be discussing the premiere episode of season 2 of Your Friends and Neighbors, a very popular Apple TV series from last year, starring John Hamm and back for a second season, automatically renewed for a third season, just like the approved season 2 before season 1 was even released, and doing the same thing once again. Have a question mark as to whether they should have pulled the trigger that quickly. But, we'll save that for the conversation. Joining me for this conversation is Sona, as usual.
Hi.
Hi, Sona. And a few things to mention here before we get into the actual proper conversation. First of all, I'll be traveling. Sona, we'll both be in Florida at the same time.
We will.
You know what? I mapped this out just a minute before you joined the conversation, and we're only about a 2-hour drive from each other.
Oh, okay then.
So rather than me saying that, I was like, we're probably going to have to be recording the DTF follow-up. Maybe that's just a brief announcement. DTF, 2 more episodes of that. We will be continuing to cover that. That one I'll definitely publish while we are traveling, considering we're so close to the end of the season. The rest of the stuff is probably going to be delayed through after we return. But immediately after we return, starting sometime after next Saturday, we will have recaps of the Pitt, which is very close to the end, just 2 episodes away as well as the next episode of Your Friends and Neighbors, and Euphoria kicks off, and DTF finishes, and oh my God, it's just so many things.
When it rains, of course.
Of course. And we're flying out tomorrow, but we will also, Kim and I, will be recording a conversation about the Pitt tonight, and I'll just schedule it to publish over the weekend. So lots of stuff coming, folks. I've been asking everybody to do just one call to action per week. And the most recent one was, if by chance you just get us in your feed because, you've listened to us a few times, or you listened to a show last year and now it's back, so it automatically pops up on one of your feeds. A lot of people listen to us and aren't subscribers. So I said, hey, that's something easy to do. Just subscribe. That way you always get a notification when we have new episodes come out. And we had about a 10% increase in subscribers last week. And that might have been because Paradise was very, very popular, the finale there. Or it might have been because of this call to action. So I'm making it again. So yeah, if you haven't subscribed before, do subscribe. And we will give you an update on how that's going. And come up with a new call to action. I think I have something big planned, but I can't tease it yet because we're going to be on vacation and I can't do all the things I wanted to do. But the next call to action should be pretty impressive, a teaser for everybody.
Intriguing.
Oh, so Sona, as I was joking that we probably would publish an episode, but probably be in our hotels, maybe using our phones to record, and the quality might not be great. I was looking at how far apart we actually would be, and I'm like, maybe we could get the family to hang out together. I'll find like a podcast studio where you can rent by the hour somewhere in the midway point between the two of us, and they can go hang out and have lunch while we record face to face for like the first time ever. But that's very ambitious, but we'll see if there's any chance we can actually run into each other there if we have some downtime.
Yeah, we will not have a car. So you are welcome, though, at
yes.
Universal Studios.
We do have a car, so we could be an ambitious trip out there. We were trying to not do any, we do have a couple of days with nothing planned. So we were thinking maybe to go to one of the parks since it's only a 2-hour drive. But yeah, maybe we can swing by your place. We'll see how it all plays out. That could be way too ambitious considering, you know what? We always make these big plans and then we're kind of just hanging out at the hotel and we're like, you know what? It's kind of nice here. We'll just chill.
I get it.
But we'll see. We'll see how that form, that next conversation takes. Oh, and the last thing I wanted to bring up is last conversation we had, you mentioned that you wanted to talk about Imperfect Women. And I was curious to have you spoil it for me because apparently some outlandish stuff has happened on there. And after I teased it on the podcast, as I was editing it, I realized I never let you actually spoil the show.
Yeah, I realized that too, but I was okay with that.
But you know what? The reason I didn't circle back to it anyway is because we are covering an Apple TV show right now. And I'm going to have just a brief snapshot of just the incredible volume of stuff that is coming to Apple. But maybe at the end of this conversation, just don't spoil anything yet. Let's actually have a conversation where you can tell me what's happening on Imperfect Women. Also because I did mention it a few times, so I guess maybe some people, and of course they have Apple TV. A lot of our audience watches Apple TV, so many people may be watching the show. So let's leave a little space at the end of this conversation to have a little teaser, or I should say a little spoiler conversation about that.
Sounds good.
And I just wanted to shout out I've brought this up perhaps a couple of times with you, Sona, but the amazing investment that Apple TV, I actually thought Apple TV was going to try to make a play for HBO. I thought that would be a really good synergy between the two of them because it would be a studio, and they just had this huge success with F1. And F1 was released by Warner Brothers, which of course is under this broader Warner Brothers HBO umbrella. I really feel like Apple is trying to be HBO, like appealing to a similar audience. And they would just immediately have this massive catalog of IP that they could just integrate. And of course, they could afford it. They're talking about, less than $100 billion here. Apple is a $4 trillion company. Like, they easily purchased them. So I was kind of surprised they didn't make a more aggressive bid. And of course, we'll still see how that all plays out. There's all that drama around that deal. But very interesting that there wasn't something more aggressive from Apple's side. But then Apple just started to announce so many projects, movies and TV series, like weekly practically. So I'm like, well, maybe this is their big play, is just to kind of flood the market. So just this month, of course, currently, apropos of the fact that we have a moon mission currently at this moment, For All Mankind just came back for its 5th season. And that just came back 2 weeks ago. I'm a whole season behind on that show. Although for anybody who's wanted to dip their toe in, the first season specifically, but the first and second season, it has some soap opera elements to it, but this has the best space action that I've seen in any TV show ever. It's absolutely the season finales of season 1 and season 2. It's like the whole season culminates in this incredible edge of your seat, 1 hour, sometimes 1.5 hour, breathtaking action sequence. And of course, all the soapiness of the season up until that point has made you build relationships with these characters and have cataclysmic results here. And it's really just fantastic. Sona, do you know anything about this whole For All Mankind? It's actually a very interesting concept.
I have heard of it, but that's all I know. I have no idea what it's even about.
It's pretty amazing, by the way. And like I said, I'm a whole two seasons behind, but this is really great concept. What the concept of the show is that it is during the space race with the Soviet Union back in the 1960s. And what happens is that we're about to send men to space for the first time, just like our actual historical facts, like this people playing actual historical figures. And then, surprise to everybody, the Soviet Union not only lands somebody on the moon ahead of us, it's a woman. It's a woman. And then that's the jumping off point. And then what it becomes from there is all of a sudden NASA has to completely change their agenda with the moon mission to make it female driven so that they can compete with the Russians. So then all these men who traditionally were all training to be these hotshot astronauts are now suddenly in this really awkward position. But the women also have not been trained for this. So they're suddenly in a situation. They're forced into a situation. And then every season jumps like years into the future. So there's like a parallel line where who wins an election because of this outcome.
Interesting.
Right? All these alternate ways and how it affects politics. And a woman one of these astronauts, minor spoiler, becomes a president first. So you have a female president much earlier. But then there's, like a backlash against having a female president. Culturally as well, the civil rights movement gets pushed aggressively more forward because they want to show that they're more progressive than the Soviets. So it has this fascinating consequences. And now in season 5, they have a Mars mission because now there is a 3-way race after the Soviets lost like the second part of this space race. Then you basically have colonies on Mars that are American, Chinese, and Russian. So it's like this alternate history of all these things that would have happened. Something's really good, something's really bad if these things had played out the way they did. And it's a really fascinating exercise, and like just trying to speculate on how all these unforeseen consequences of everybody's actions. And it's really very clever.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, I highly recommend it for anybody who has not caught up on it. And once again, some of the action sequences in this show are absolutely thrilling. And so small stakes, right? It's like literally just somebody trying to repair a rocket to save the rest of the crew, something that probably would happen in real life. And you are bawling in your chair because it's so relatable. They've created this world so concretely. It's really powerful stuff. But it's jumped more into the future, or actually it's kind of in present time. But I did lose a little bit of interest with it. But it's still been very good. Like I said, I'm at one season behind. But in general, if you're starting from the beginning, especially, very highly recommended.
Cool.
And apropos, of course, we're flying to the moon. So at this very moment.
That's right.
So that's just mentioning that's on the air right now. But of course, your friends and neighbors, big Apple TV premiere this very week. But there's more yet to come, Sona. We have Outcome, which they previewed last night. This is directed by Jonah Hill and starring Keanu Reeves, a movie that got some very good reviews at some of the film festivals. And it's a comedy thriller about someone who's blackmailing the Keanu Reeves character. And now he has to go and make amends before this video comes out and embarrasses him. So, that's, it's a huge cast here. You have Martin Scorsese's in the cast. You have Cameron Diaz, I believe we saw in that trailer as well. So some pretty big stars, to say the least. So interesting. And that's coming just in about a week. Margo's Got Money Troubles. Have you seen the trailer for this?
No, I don't think I have.
This is from David E. Kelly, by the way, and that's usually a red flag for me. But this played at South by Southwest and got very good reviews. And it's based on a best-selling book. And it stars Michelle Pfeiffer and Nick Offerman. Or actually, the actual star is Elle Fanning, who plays a college student who accidentally gets pregnant by her professor and has to drop out of college. And her parents are played by Michelle Pfeiffer and Nick Offerman. And Nick Offerman is a former wrestler, and Michelle Pfeiffer was a Hooters waitress, and that's how they met up. But somehow the combination of these two things, she starts her OnlyFans site and becomes a huge celebrity on OnlyFans. And this played they premiered this at the South by Southwest Film Festival, and it got great reviews. So I'm very excited to see this. And that's coming this month as well. And have you seen the trailer by chance, Sona, for Widow's Bay? Have you seen this trailer?
No, I haven't. I'm just learning about all sorts of new stuff today.
This is also coming out this month, and they just premiered the trailer this very week. And it is a comedy horror series, and it stars Matthew Rhys, one of your favorites. And it's created by Hiro Murai, one of the creators of the show, who created Atlanta, The Bear, Beef, all great, Barry, all great shows that he's been involved with. And this is his next one. And if you see the trailer, Sona, by the way, it's very creepy. It's played like found footage, just somebody talking about this location where they're at, the bay that might be haunted. And there's this creepy figure that emerges in the background. It's very creepy. But this is a comedic horror horror series that is coming this very season and this very month as well. And then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. This is just this month. There's even more premieres that I'm going to kind of skip over for now. And Sona, the Savant, which we were going to cover here in the podcast, still does not have a release date, but I assume pretty soon we're going to see that Jessica Chastain CIA thriller as well.
Oh, right. I had forgotten about that.
I think a lot of people have, but
yeah,
when everybody has no interest in seeing it anymore, that's when they're finally premiered. Oh, and of course, Imperfect Women is still ongoing, but let's carve out a few minutes to discuss that, because I can't wait to hear what you were trying to tell me last episode and we never got around to it.
Yeah, now I'm an episode behind again, but
that's
I have
okay.
a feeling my impression's not going to change.
I've only seen episode 1. I was curious. Part of the reason I wanted to bring this up with you is because in my headlines, I did see someone, a headline about something that happened last night on Imperfect Women. So maybe there would be something juicy to discuss there. But hey, I've only seen half of one episode, so it's all spoilers for me. So that's fine. Okay, so let's start talking about this episode of Your Friends and Neighbors. Do you know the title of this by chance, Sona?
Something like We're Here Until We're Not.
Oh, yeah, he says something like that in the... You are absolutely correct. It is exactly We're Here Until You're Not. I was biding my time there asking you the question while I pulled up the website. But yes, that's actually something that is said by Coop in this very episode. Okay, so let's just get a couple general impressions here. But I think there's so many. At first, I was like, I don't know how much to talk about here. Then I started taking some notes, like scene to scene. And it turned out I had a lot of comments to make.
Interesting.
Some good, some not so good. But what was your general impression of this episode?
I enjoyed it. I think it's trying to set up some of the themes that will be for the season going forward. It wasn't like I was on the edge of my seat at any point, although I'm not sure this is the type of show where you're ever on the edge of your seat, but I did enjoy watching it.
Oh, good. I'm glad you struggled with this. And I did watch this. I did. And I did watch it with my wife. And we both were really out on the first scene. But the thing that brought me back in, I have to say.
Yeah, the first scene was a bit annoying. Yeah.
Really bad, right? I mean, I really struggled with that first scene of the episode. And that's as much as she saw. She may have just watched a little bit of James Marsden's introduction. But I have to say that that's a positive here. I thought that Marsden did a great job here and loved seeing his character show up and just like sketching out this character so quickly and honestly intriguing me about him.
Yeah.
That, you think about him buddying up to Sam and you don't even know what he's going to be in the show right now. Is he a untrustworthy manipulator? Is he buddying up to Sam because he wants to manipulate her because he knows that she doesn't have any other options? So this is like somebody he can kind of manipulate in his own way. Or is he buddying up to her because he really has some kind of empathy towards these people who are outsiders? So all of this is really intriguing to me. And I think he just does a perfect job of being that guy who's a total jerk, but so much owns it that he's charming in his own way. I thought it was like a perfect performance, which very little in this episode worked as well as that did for me.
I mean, have we seen that he's a total jerk though?
Oh yeah. I'm laying that on the fact that you think about how the show in its perspective at the end of last year was like rejecting all these things when he is like wallowing in all those same things. That's why I say that I think it's kind of, they're setting him up as being a jerk, but you're absolutely correct. And that's what's interesting to me about the perspective that he might bring, that if the show has taken this perspective that, towards the end of season 1 about Coop rejecting all these material things, of course, which is total BS, by the way, because he's still stealing these expensive things from his neighbors, which is a huge question mark as how that can continue to happen. But
seems to be at a beautiful resort in Mexico in the beginning too.
Yeah,
so
maybe is that Cabo, right? Is that location?
I don't know. I feel like from the East Coast, people more go to Riviera Maya area, Cancun adjacent, but could have been Cabo.
I Googled Flora Farms, which is they're supposed to have that reservation, and
I see.
It says Cabo, but they may have more than one. They might have more than one location. I don't know anything about those things.
No, you're probably right.
So yeah, I had some questions. Anyway, let's get into it as we break down the episode itself. Let's start with that really awkward opening scene. Me and my wife, Kim and I, we're so confused by what was happening in that scene. We're like, okay, he's there by himself. He's trying to pick up this lady. We've jumped some period of time in the future. Why is he loaded now again? Is he living some Playboy lifestyle? Nope. There's his wife. Okay. Oh, they're together again. So they've reconciled after the fallout from season 1. But no, she's not really with him, but the family's on vacation together. I did a lot of work trying to figure out what was happening in that scene, which I don't think the show intended. It didn't really pay a dividend.
I actually didn't mind any of that until the argument at the end, where I felt just as confused as Coop about what on earth is this lady's problem.
Yes. We were confused and a little annoyed with the conversation in general. But yes, when all of a sudden she turns on him, it's totally head scratching. What is happening here?
Yeah,
and it's a little irritating.
Lay enough groundwork for that disagreement.
And it's a little irritating because they both are still hung up on each other. At this point, why is this happening anyway? It doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
I think they wanted to resolve the issue of whether they were together or not, because at the end of last season, you thought maybe they were going to reconcile.
Right. Sure.
And so they did get that out there. And I think you could have still kept the complications of that without having that weird argument at the end.
Oh, you know what I really should have started with, Sona? I know you love, I know you love a previously on. Holy cow. This
I
is,
love it previously on. That was perfect for me.
it's the
Tell me
whole
everything.
entire season. Like even the small plot beats, like you not only, oh, she really shot her husband, it's everything that her witnessing the night of. I'm like, holy cow, like this is every important thing that happened in the show.
I love it.
All down to 5 minutes, basically. Is a pretty incredible. We were just laughing, being like, holy cow, they're going to show everything.
I love it.
So yeah, and not a problem. But do you think that that indicates that they have a little lack of faith with their audience's engagement with the show? Do you think?
I feel like maybe it's a lack of faith in the audience's recollection of the show. And I personally deserve that lack of faith. I needed to be reminded. So I guess it doesn't bother me. I mean, I know that today we often have larger gaps between seasons than this show has had. So the previously on is more important when 2 years have gone by. But nonetheless, I am overstimulated by media day in and day out. So I still appreciated the reminder, and I don't take it as a lack of confidence so much as an acknowledgement of the world we live in, which I think I wish other shows would do it more. I feel like it's kind of putting yourself up on a pedestal to say, you don't need the previously on because our show is so fantastic that it must be ingrained in your memory and you don't need this help.
Well, a couple of points to that. I mean, first of all, I do appreciate it, but I just think it was a little crazy because first, it's the idea that the show hasn't been off the air for that long. This is less than a year, that which is a really fast turnaround, which is great. I do appreciate that, by the way, but it's a pretty fast turnaround. So you assume, let's say half the audience saw it right at the beginning and the other half caught up with it over time. Some people may have only watched this thing a few months ago. But not only that, it just doesn't seem to be the regular going process for Apple TV. We tried, we didn't finish this. I don't think you did either, but we tried to watch Hijack season 2. And that previously on for season 2, when we watched that first premiere episode, it's like just the highlights. It's just 3 or 4 really important things that happen, and that we don't see like that every. And then this kid is dating this girl. I'm like, do we need to know?
Okay, but I don't think this is going to happen episode to episode,
No.
right? It's just the one time.
Yes. No, it just seemed an odd choice. It just seemed an odd choice to cram everything in there. And not only that, we have seen plenty of whatever, like we're watching Better Call Saul, the first episode of that, and you see kind of the highlights of the previous season. And then let's say in episode 2 or 3 of the season, some killer comes back from season 2 or whatever. Then we see on the previously on, hey, that's who that guy is. You don't kind of try to cram it all into that first episode. It seemed like a lot is just all I'm saying. But I did appreciate it. I'm not going to complain. To your point, hey, if you give me every episode, if you give me like a 2 or 3 minute recap of everything that happened up until that point, I'm okay with that as well. So I can always skip it if I think like I'm good. I don't need to do this. I can skip it if I want to, but I have the option. But then Sona no one would listen to us over here because they could just watch the little clips and get all the information they need in a much more efficient way as well.
It would be more efficient.
But what did you make? Okay, let's finish that scene before we jump to the next. In that first scene, when the fight breaks out at the end, I know Coop is confused. I know you were confused. I know I was confused. But do you have a read on what's going on there? She seems to be, I just thought that she had outgrown that thing she had in season 1, where she's like, I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. And then Coop was like, I don't understand what you want. So I'm confused. And then it seems like the show in so many ways, for those characters specifically, for Coop and his wife, that it feels like such a reset. It feels like they didn't do anything last season with those characters if they're reverting back to these beginning of season character positions.
Well, in the beginning of the last season, I think she was happily with the basketball player in that first couple of episodes. So it is a change from there, although that ended pretty quickly. I can't remember when that birthday party scene happened, maybe halfway through the season. So I don't think we've quite come full circle, but I do see your point that not much has been resolved if they haven't reconciled and they haven't further divided their lives. I do think that's a purposeful choice with the conversation later in the episode about how complicated divorce can be, and you forget in the moment all of the consequences that you'll have to deal with.
Yeah, it's not that it's not complicated. My confusion more is that we are back in the position where we're trying to mind read what's going on in her mind, which, to your point, it would be very interesting. Oh, and by the way, and we know that Coop in this flash, recap, another recap, which is the reason I thought about the initial recap. But let me finish my first point, then get to that irritation as well. But it's fine to be like, we reconciled, we love each other, we tried again, and it's complicated, right? That is reality, and that's just good, I think, for character development. It just feels like we are resetting to this, I don't know what I want position. And it's not only that she seems to have the exact same kind of opinion on her side. Here we have, in the first season, Coop was hooking up occasionally with 2 or 3 different people. And here he's just having one night stands, but he's still waking up pining for his wife. So it just feels like such a reset to where we were before. I find it a little frustrating. And also there's a lot of hand waving. We'll talk about some of the plot hand waving, but there's so much hand waving about how he's still going out and karaokeing with this guy who's his best buddy, even though he found out that he cheated with his wife. But I guess it's okay because they cheated first. And it just seems like really weird where they...
I agree. That part is really weird.
It's just a weird place where they found these characters this period of time later. Oh, but the reason that I was talking about, do you think it's overkill for the recap at the beginning of the episode, is not only that it seems long compared to what you usually get, it's the fact that the structure of this show is that internal monologue. So 4 minutes, 5 minutes into this show, we have Coop catching us up on everything that happened. Oh, it was framed for murder. And so I'm like, we just saw this in the recap. It's very strange.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where it felt very redundant to me. And they do a lot of hand waving, right? Like he gives us the whole rundown that I could have gone back to the Corbin Burnson job, and I accepted it at first, but then I rejected it and I stole his painting instead and burned that bridge for good. So I guess Corbin Burnson's probably out of the show. And I guess that they just probably want to remove that aspect of the show completely, because I think it's probably too many plates to spin. So he's officially out there, but the painting's disappeared. He hangs it up in his office, but I guess no one's ever going to see it. I'm not sure how. Does anyone ever go to his office? I guess Corbin Burnson ever shows up. That's a problem. And he is now apparently living even higher on the hog because he's become so good at robbing stuff. And isn't this very hand wavy? Wouldn't people be really on high alert? This burglar is still out there. And it just seems a little outlandish. But here's my question to you.
Maybe they got distracted by the whole murder thing, and then the burglaries died down. And so then they thought, oh, I guess that's over now.
They died down when he was arrested. What a coincidence. But
they're also mad at Olivia Munn that it doesn't matter. I don't know.
True. But the and hand waving about how she just, and maybe that's a legal question I have for you, is for 2 reasons. So first of all, do you think that all these things could just become hand waved away, even for her, in the context of the show, as all misdemeanors? But more importantly, I think, and I'm sounding very critical here, but my bigger question is, do you think that a lot of this hand waving, like these people don't have better security, she just got community service so that she could be back on the show, and it's all just yada, yada, yada? Is that a flaw in the show? Or is this the show just being like, look, this is a fantasy, people. Like none of this is real, right? And not in a bad way, none of this is real. But this isn't the story we're telling. It's not about crime and punishment. It's about, the fantasy of this lifestyle and then pitting these 2 guys against each other over the course of the season. So do you think it is a bug, or do you think it's a feature here that they are yada yada-ing so much of the actual fallout of this thing?
I think this show lives in that fantastical space of somebody's dream life colliding with the reality of what that means in materialism. But I don't think it wants us to look too hard at the logistics of things. So I think in order to enjoy this show, you have to go with the hand waving. I mean, personally, and I haven't Googled it yet, he kept saying he was exonerated. As far as I know, exoneration only happens after you've been convicted.
Right.
So even that was like triggering me a little bit, that like, I think they probably just dismissed the charges. I don't remember if there was a trial. I don't know.
I don't think there was a trial.
I think it doesn't matter.
Right. But I also was going to say that I want you to finish what you were saying, but I was just going to interject that I think that when he's saying exonerated, I think what he's saying there, I don't think he meant legally. I think it was more I've been exonerated in the culture as opposed to Olivia Munn. That is,
Yeah, maybe as an attorney, I heard it in the way of legal significance. That's a fair point. But anyway, I do think you can't look too hard or think too hard at that type of stuff in order to, if you want to enjoy the show, you can't.
Right. And I think that's what I was bumping up against. Not that I want them to, it doesn't have to be completely rational. This is a TV show, obviously, but I wanted them to come up with it's just for me in general with these things. I prefer when a show comes up with a clever way out of a tricky thing they've written themselves into. It's a situation they've created for themselves, as opposed to be like, don't worry about that. It's just, well, don't just tell me not to worry about it. Fix it in your own way. Even if it doesn't have to be realistic, just something that it pays off in some way. And maybe it will.
Maybe, but I wouldn't count on that.
True. Okay, so there's some awkward stuff here. And I don't remember if the scene comes before or after, but I'm going to be one more negative on this show before I get to the positive, just to get it out of the way. I think the next scene is, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but it is definitely my least favorite scene of the whole entire show. And maybe they were compounding at this point, but it's when the daughter goes for her Princeton interview. Man,
my gosh, this was terrible. Okay, I'm with you on that.
A bad scene, like a truly
it was terrible.
Bad scene. And this is part of, my negative feeling going into this beginning of this episode, where I feel like 3 scenes in a row are really not connecting for me, and culminating with this one, which is absolutely disastrous. Like just speaking out loud themes and writing this character as like some kind of caricature of her generation. Like you can't have a character. And by the way, they get a lot of screen time. The kids have gotten screen time, and they get screen time here. And I have a feeling like their interpersonal relationships and stuff are going to be important to the show. You can't set up, but you have to do one or the other. You have to actually define the character in an interesting way, or you let her just be like a character on the side who's just like another headache for the dad to handle, which is okay, but you can't have it both ways. You can't have her be like just a caricature of a generation and still be like one of the central characters in the show. It's just, and what terrible dialogue this was, really.
I don't think I even understood what they were trying to accomplish with that scene.
Right. I guess the comedic beat, and that's how clunky it was. Her going in there and being like, oh, you guys are like destroying that. You guys don't care. Like her being in there saying your generation is destroying the environment and you don't care. You only care about making money and you're this and this. Plus, I don't care what I say right now because my parents are, both former Princeton. So I'm going to be alumnied into this no matter what I do. And then, of course, the punchline is, oh, plus I really love tennis. Yeah, that's how I'm really getting into this with a tennis scholarship or whatever. And it looks like her friend is not going there. So we did see briefly the mom.
Well, yeah, because last year he threatened them, right?
Right.
About
which was not in the flashback. They should have put that into the recap. So they would remind us
that was not in the flashback.
The one thing that they forgot to include. That was the one thing I had to, in my own brain, be like, oh, yeah, that's right. Because everything else was there. I didn't have to think too hard about anything else. Okay, so show is really not working for me at this point in the episode. And then
that is totally fair. That was a crappy scene with the daughter.
And then James Marsden shows up, and I thought all of this was great. The way he shows up, he knows exactly what tone to hit. I love how he like susses out exactly what's going on with the house. I really liked his interactions with Olivia Munn. Olivia Munn's performance last year, she doesn't always have good chemistry with her performers. I thought they were really good together. Yeah, all of this was a lot of fun. And I love how that whole thing plays out. And then he takes her under his wing. He sees there's an opportunity here to make a quick win. And yeah, all of this whole entire scene, I thought, wow, there you go. That's the show I want to be seeing right.
Yeah, that was a fun scene.
Do you have a feeling for what his agenda might be there in trying to cozy up to Sam? You mentioned that I was like saying that maybe, and this is me overreading into the show based on what I've heard about him being like a foil for the John Hamm character for Coop. So I'm reading into like how they might be developing him in the future. But in this moment, just, given this one episode that we've actually watched, what did you, what's your feeling for him?
Well, I'm not sure if this is what's really going on, but superficially, they tried to create this idea of they're in the same club, right?
Yes.
Because they both have dead spouses. And I think there was another way they were both in the same club. Is maybe something about criminal convictions.
They both were arrested, but then, yeah, exactly.
Right. So it feels like maybe he's the type that, at least on the surface, wants to help people and that he thinks are worthy of helping for some reason or the other. Whether there's something nefarious underneath, I don't know.
Yeah, I actually like reading him at this moment. That's exactly what he is, right? That he likes these people who are outsiders, basically because he gets to be in the catbird seat all the time, just given his wealth and that he knows he's a good looking guy and that he kind of gets everyone's attention. Everybody wants to cozy up to him, that he has the ability of bringing people into the fold who've been rejected. And I really like that, him being a chaos agent, but not because he's bad. And he might be a bad guy. Who knows? This is too early to tell. But just that he is a chaos agent because people don't want her there. And that's the very reason he wants to bring her in, but not necessarily just to stir the pot, but to confront them in a way with their hypocrisy or whatever it is. And I like that type of character. I thought that's a lot of fun. So I hope that's the way he continues to develop. Although it's pretty clear from what we've seen of the show that he's going to find out what Coop is up to. And then that is going to be an interesting, turn of events for sure. We'll see how long into the season it takes for that to develop. And what do you think about them? The fact that, do you read it the same way? Of course, Coop, importantly, later on, says that he doesn't know why he didn't take the job again, that he didn't want his life to go back to the way it was. But we had the same critique, or at least opinion, of season 1, that he supposedly is like, we need to just jump in the car and drive to California and have a simple life as a family again. But he's obsessed with keeping up appearances. So again, I ask you, do you think that's a flaw in the show, that it's not aware of its own accidental hypocrisy? Or do you think that it is intentional, that there is a tension between him wanting to be a hippy dippy, fly by the seat of your pants like his sister is, and the person he was when he was younger, and this status obsessed thief? And the irony of all of this, of course, is that he's showing these people, by taking the stuff that is so expensive and they don't even know that they own, he's taking it as a way to call them hypocrites, but he does need that money to stay in this orbit, right? So what do you think of all that?
Yeah, I choose that second one. I think it's purposeful.
It's a tension there between the two.
Yeah.
All right. And
which do you think?
I want the show to be that, but I want the show to, engage with that. I feel like it has presented that. And I thought at the end of last season, that is where we had arrived at. And that's where I feel like we're taking a step back, but it could be to reset so that we can have this duality between these two characters, right? Between the James Marsden and Coop and Ash. And I think that maybe that's what's happening. But like I said, I actually was kind of looking forward to this season where it becomes more of like a heist show and he has to be on his toes and he needs to potentially make much bigger heists and become better at it. And maybe the show becomes a little darker and becomes more of a crime procedure show. And then the risks are higher and people might be looking at him That's kind of what I thought they were setting up after season 1. This very much seems like they're taking a step back into the middle of season 2 as a reset. And then, but maybe it will become the show I just described. But like now we're kind of have he has somebody to butt against who is actually like a character in the show. Not like that art dealer guy in season 1 who really is not a real foil in any way. He's just an impediment to him. But maybe that's what they're trying to do here in this season. But we'll see. I do hope they explore that. I think that is interesting because I think that is true of our culture, right? We are every day being like, we need to be more mindful. We need to do this. I need to focus on family. And then it's just like, but I want that new car. So it's like, we all live in that, situation. So I think it's a powerful motivator, whether you have money or not. There are people who there are rich people who just look at Instagrams of richer people. And then there's poor people who just spend their time looking at Instagrams of rich people. And then there's people who aren't rich who pretend to be rich on Instagram so they can like scam other people into giving them their money. They be like me, you can get rich, and they're getting rich by just scamming poorer people. So it's like the whole culture runs on this. So I think there's a lot to mine there. I'm not sure if they've gotten there yet. But I do hope. Right. I mean, there's opportunity here. That's what I've always found about the show. I think there's an opportunity to explore this idea. I don't think it's been great at it so far, but there, we do get to see some pretty cool stuff. I love the Cabo or wherever that place is. That resort looks absolutely beautiful.
It does.
What's the guy's name? Bernard. The new place they're living at. Is that a real location? I mean, I guess it has to be a real location. Do you know what location they're in? What building they're in when they're in that apartment with the incredible view?
Oh, with the father-in-law. Yeah.
Yes.
No, I don't. It feels like it might be that huge tower
at the
over
edge
on
of the park,
57th
right?
Street. Yeah.
Yeah, which is incredible. That's just giant. Mostly vacant, by the way. People bought that place and it's mostly vacant most of the time. These billionaires never actually live there. But that's what I thought the same thing, because I think we see the park from outside, right? Okay, so I'm on board. Very excited about the Marsden character. And then the show wobbles a little bit again. So we have, first of all, he is breaking into people's homes. He's stealing this Mont Blanc pen.
Yes.
Which is worth $150,000, carved by hand from gold or something. Incredible that this pen is worth this much. And this guy's just throwing them out. I mean, like that drawer must be full of millions of dollars worth of pens. And he's getting trivia. He's so not lackadaisical, but he's so not stressed by the situation he's in that he has Elena quizzing him on trivia while he is doing his heist. But he might be cool, calm, and collected. Still, this guy's like sociopathically cool and calm when it comes to things. And he throws out his back while he's trying to reach for this pen. And this is when they have to bring in Barney to help him, or she has to contact him to help him get him out of that situation. And then, of course, Barney finds out what he's actually been up to. And what did you think about all this? Like him just being like, hey, Elena, just get out of here. I'll be fine. You're going to find this guy laying on your carpet of your floor. Do you think he doesn't take this seriously enough? Like, I don't understand. What's his mindset at this point?
Well, I do think he's protective of Elena.
Yes.
So I think there's that. But yeah, we've thought that since the last season, right? That some of his decision making, it's very much like a person that wants to get caught, like very reckless, not really being careful about how you're executing these robberies. So in that way, I guess it's in keeping and requires some of that hand waving.
It's just a crazy thing that to keep doubling down on the definition of this character, that you would think at this moment, for me anyway, again, I'll go back to the character development we did see of the character over the course of season 1, that you would think that he doesn't want to blow up his family's life, not just financially, but the reputation, the shame his kids would have, the not spending time with his kids. It really felt like he had gone from being numb to getting to some kind of point of revelation by the end of season 1. And the idea that he's just like throwing out his back and being like, oh, it's okay, I'll take care of it. I'm like, again, you gotta, maybe I'm not supposed to think about these things, but he gets caught inside the house. The pen's there on the floor. They start asking questions. They show up at his office. They find all this stolen goods at his house, in his office in Manhattan. I'm like, I don't like this. Seems crazy. I understand, anybody who's a criminal has, is taking risks, but the idea that he is this cavalier about it when he almost went to jail for life. Yeah, it just seems like he is, he's either a pathological criminal potentially, which he probably is, or just purely sociopathic. But we're not supposed to think he misses his family. He wants to be with his wife. He misses his kids. Right. So it's, again, this show is, I'm very confused as to how I'm supposed to believe this character would do some of the things he does. And of course, this is all supposed to be cute. I don't know how cute it is. I found that a little irritating. A way to have him reveal to Barney what he's actually up to. And then, of course, Barney gets offered this job. It's very cushy. It puts him, of course, very much in the shoes of Coop, that he could have had the same experience, not experience, but, the same opportunity to have a job handed to him that would set him up for life, have everything supposedly financially that he wants, but he is dissatisfied and wants to be like the master of his own destiny. So now he wants to go into business with Coop. So now Coop has to subsidize two people who basically have $1 million a year lifestyles through stealing stuff from their neighbors, which I can't imagine that's going to go well.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know how that is supposed to work. Is Barney willing to get in there and do these burglaries?
Does he need another person? What's he going to do? I mean, I guess he doesn't have a thing. He won't throw his back out as often, so maybe that'll help. Or
maybe the same way they should be expanding the gym franchise. They need to be expanding the neighborhoods that they're robbing. I don't know.
That's the other thing that's so funny about it is you think about Barney being like, could you imagine he manages, I can't remember his name now.
I can't either, but I know who you mean. The basketball player,
who's still like best friends with the Coop, even after all these things. But, and if, and as I'm reading that scene, by the way, at the party where Marsden's trying to network with everybody, and he's like, call me. You don't want to open up one or two franchises. I have enough money to make you open like 100 at a time. I want you to go national instantly. This might all be another way he's manipulating people by making them this offer, which of course puts you on the hook. But if he actually has this kind of wealth, then Barney could be making a huge commission just off of this deal. So again, it's very strange that these people, I know this show's not only about the financial aspects of this, but these people who could have retirement level money handed to them are willing to honestly steal stuff that is kind of peanuts, right? Coop could have had his fund handed back to him at the end of last season if he just played nice for just a little bit for that one meeting. He could have had tens of millions of dollars, which again would have set everybody up for life. And he's stealing a pen for $100,000. I'm like, it really is. That's a lot of money for you and me, but that's like pennies for this guy. He turned down 100 times that much money.
Which gets it back to kind of his self-destructive nature.
Yeah. And now Barney is equally self-destructive.
Yeah. And I remember talking about it at the time saying, okay, you can be self-destructive, but you still have a family. So
sure, right.
Can you just be a responsible father and ex-spouse so that your family who is relying on you for tons of money doesn't have to stress out? But I guess they don't know that this is where the money's coming from. So maybe they're not stressed out, but you get my point.
Yeah, they think he's just, making money on making the same kind of salary he did before and working for himself. So he must be very proud of himself. But that's not what's happening, obviously. But yeah, to your point, again, I just found it so outlandish, the finale of last season, where if he had just gone to that meeting, he was negotiating that. He's like, I don't have to come into the office. I don't want to. You're going to put my name back on there. You're going to give me my clients back. And he could just be working from home most of the time or just be like a partner in name only and be collecting this money after the end of last season. And like you were saying, I'm like, just take a few of those $1 million and put it into like a trust somewhere offshore so that if you do get arrested, inevitably, that your family at least can live off of that, because you have probably a multi-million-dollar mortgage on the existing home and the new home that you're renting or whatever it is, right? So it's a crazy circumstance. But of course, this goes back to the idea that this is all a fantasy, so maybe I'm over analyzing. Oh, one more thing I got to talk about. Curious to get your take on this one. What did you make about Mel going on this date, being really turned on by this guy, almost hooking up with him in the car, and then realizing that her perimenopause has kicked in. What did you think about this whole thing?
Yeah, it was interesting. And I wonder too if it is partly this unresolved thing that with Coop that's going on. But I did like the reference to perimenopause. I think there's a big movement right now in our culture to recognize that that is a thing that is happening to women and it's not an easy stage of life, and to not shy away from talking about it. So I did like that, but I think not enough information was given for me to be fully on board. Although maybe her weird snapping at Coop in that opening scene was also perimenopause. Now that I think
might
about
have
it,
been the mood swing.
maybe that's why it didn't make any sense. I say as a perimenopausal woman, but so I liked it conceptually. I'm not sure about the execution of it.
Kim has been listening to many perimenopause podcasts, by the way.
Well, I'm sure as someone with a medical background, she has more of an interest in getting to the bottom of what's happening. Whereas with me, I'm kind of just writing it out as something
as best you can.
That I can't do anything about. So let's see what happens today. Yeah.
You guys should commiserate because
we have.
Yeah. It was an interesting way to introduce the topic, I would have to say, in that particular moment.
I mean, I thought maybe she had food poisoning or that she was making an excuse.
Yeah, I thought she was just suddenly having some kind of, not a guilt.
Yeah, so that's why I'm saying the execution was like, because I have those questions, I'm still not sure that's really what happened.
That's it, yeah. And I think that's the other interesting point that you bring up, which I was just thinking about how clunkily it was being addressed. But of course, it does introduce the topic into the show, which is a very real topic for people in this age group, of course. But you make a valid point too, which it was my original read also, that she's just still pining for Coop. And is that just in her head getting in the way of this? And in her mind, she's like, I should be enjoying this, but I can't. And it must be my perimenopause, which it might be related to perimenopause, but there's a psychological aspect that she maybe is in denial of, considering that she's been in denial of so many things since season 1. As a matter of fact, in that flashback, which of course is in the flashback, we even see that she is like keying somebody's car because, as like kind of just a petty revenge. So it is just expressing again that there is this internal struggle she's going through that she's not really dealing with. And it's all probably connected to the Coop. And the perimenopause just makes it all worse.
As it does, yeah.
It makes everything worse. Right? But let's talk about just the logistics of, before we get to the party at the end, I want to talk about just the logistics of the crime elements of this show. Do you think, and this is just a guess at this point, obviously we haven't seen ahead, but do you think the show is in a way really just like we don't care about the heist aspect of the show? Or do you think that this is just a way to quickly bring Barney in on it? And maybe now that he has Barney, they will actually sit down and be like, how are we going to pull off this big heist? Something they tried to do last season where we're going to get our hands on like a $10 million painting, but then we got to get somebody to make a fake painting. And then we got to concoct some way to get the painting out of someone's house, even though they have high security. Do you think the show, basically my question is, do you think the show has any interest in the heists, or is this simply like in the background, they're robbing forgotten, overly priced luxury items from these people's homes, like a $60,000 tote bag, a $100,000 pen, a $200,000 bracelet, or $300,000 watch that has been forgotten in a collection of items, and that just trust that that's happening and that's how they're subsidizing themselves? If you had to guess one or the other, what would you predict?
I'm not sure what I would guess, but I know I would hope that they're not abandoning that, because
it's the premise
is
of the
the entire premise for the show, which, shows do deviate from their original premise sometimes, but this is a good one and it's only the second season. So I would rather see them stick to that. And also, this is something that we discussed last time. There feels like there's so much potential there for things they could discover while they're in someone else's house that don't relate to the burglaries, but do relate to some deep, dark secret that someone's keeping that can then be a plot point. So I hope that will continue to be a central thing that's happening.
You just brought up something that is my biggest disappointment, only in retrospect, because the show has changed so much, that my biggest disappointment with season 1, and I guess season 2 as well, although once again, this could circle back, is exactly that. The tagline for the previous season, and I assume this was how it was pitched, because it was literally like the description of the show was, he starts stealing from his neighbors out of necessity. And then he, like you said, he not only gets to see like behind closed doors, they have all the same problems he has, but he like gets to blackmail them, and he like gets to have an insider knowledge of what's going on in their relationships or at their businesses because of what he's doing. Like from snooping, he might be able to make a killing on a business deal or something, right? And that was kind of how the show was positioned. And I think over the course of the season, it changed into something else. But yeah, I think that's a real missed opportunity, because I think that's really juicy. Like absolutely, like you said, there is, given the power and influence that some of his neighbors have, that he could probably make more money from just reading, and eavesdropping on them and just getting information about what's going on in their lives than actually taking these knickknacks and trying to sell them or blackmailing them, of course, right? There's a little bit of blackmail in season 1, but barely.
A little bit between the SAT scores and the one woman who was having an affair.
Yep, exactly.
The attorney.
But maybe that's what happens. Maybe the Marsden character starts being like, "Oh man, you're thinking way too small." So we'll see. Like a real criminal mind entering the fringe here. And I guess that's the other thing that's being set up here, is by bringing Barney into the fold, it like increases this risk. Barney, by the way, revelation here that his wife is pregnant, so that's another mouth to feed, and another reason that you probably wouldn't want to go into a criminal situation at this moment, given the potential risk to your family. But I guess these people are making bad decisions, which is all part of the themes of one of the themes of the show anyway. And then of course we get to the end of the season, and he has this big party. They mention the Great Gatsby, so there's a whole possibility that he is a Gatsby-like character, right? Who's not as rich and influential as he is, or it comes from some, he's got some kind of agenda in coming back here. So all things to be discovered in the future. What'd you think about the party overall, though?
I thought they definitely were trying to bring that Great Gatsby feeling into all of it, especially with everyone ending up in the swimming pool. I haven't read that since high school, but to me, it felt very Great Gatsby. And I enjoyed it. I think part of the reason that we watch things like this is because it is fun to see that over-the-top display of wealth.
Yes.
So I liked seeing that bizarre woman in the sphere with the lights.
Yes.
And all of that. It's kind of fun. What did you think about it?
Yeah, it was fun. I thought it was a little, it could have been better in a way, like just only like we've seen these type of parties go badly in other ways in so many other films. So it could have been a little more original in some ways, but I did enjoy it. And like you mentioned, we see this giant house. I did like, again, seeing him interact with Sam. He does not seem to be like, "Oh, hey, come over here and talk to the ladies. I know they don't want to see you here." He really seems to be, honestly, "I don't have any friends here. Why don't you hang out with me?" So I really like his character again. Pretty much every scene he was in, I think he did a really good job of selling this character and giving him some gravitas that might not even be there on the page, because some of these other scenes don't really work for me. So again, Marsden, I think, killing it. And the main reason that I'm still very curious to see what's going to happen with his show and what he does with the performance, because I think he really brings a lot to it. And Olivia Munn, who I think was really underused last season and was given some really awkward dialogue and some really strange character motivations. And again, I really like the two of them together. So I think that maybe in a way makes her character a little more interesting here as well. It's totally understandable, by the way. Like on the one hand, I was about to say that it's kind of messed up that these women are giving her the cold shoulder and yada. She tried to set up Coop for murder. This is pretty crazy, Yeah. And by the way, the fact that Coop is like, "Look, I'm currently a criminal, so I really can't point the finger at her. And I treated her badly," which is part of the reason she got so vindictive. But the fact that he's so cool with seeing her again, I'm like, I don't know. Anyone tried to frame me for murder, even if I did them wrong, I'm not forgiving them that quickly. So yeah, some of this is a little odd, to say the least. But yeah, I did like seeing that dynamic. Oh, one more thing. Any idea of what we're getting from the teenage daughter? It's funny to see Ash and his teenage daughter and how she gives him the cold shoulder. And I'm not sure how we're supposed to read that much into that. Oh, I guess he's not as perfect as we expect, which A, we just assume that from being TV watchers. But B, I'm like, she could just be a teenage girl. That's how they treat everybody.
That's what I assumed. That's what I assumed.
I'm not sure we get any additional information out of that. But yeah, this would just be how she is. And there might be nothing more to it than that. And I was thinking about something else. Oh, what did you think about in the locker room where we have the guys who briefly mention politics? What do you think about the show's relationship to politics? Which, of course, it could be more political. Not only that, we're status obsessed, but you think about somebody who manipulates other people by like kind of presenting a certain type of wealth. There is something even political that could be metaphorically explored in this show. But the show does not seem to want to delve in politics at all, which I think is actually okay. And it seems like those guys in the locker room kind of represent that in their own way.
Yeah. I think also the idea that it can be very uncomfortable to talk about politics. So in order to get along, we avoid it at this point in our society. I don't think it was always that way, but I think it's that way now, that in order to get along with people, it's kind of a don't ask questions you don't want to know the answers to type of thing. What I really loved about the locker room scene that rang very true for me is the idea of all these middle-aged men together complaining about their various ailments.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
And only one professional athlete among them. So
we just went to my daughter's school concert this week, and it is so funny because we're standing there, and one of our friends who I haven't seen in a couple of months, but one of the parents, there was too much. There wasn't any place to sit. So we were all standing. All the guys were standing on the side. And he was standing next to me, and I could tell he had a lot of back pain, and he's had back pain in the back in the past. And he's saying, I'm going for surgery on Friday. So today. And he's like, didn't you get back surgery? I'm like, no, I had back problems, but I had my hip replaced. And that actually fixed my back problems because I guess I was unaligned or something. But then some other dad pitched in, oh, I just got my shoulder done. And it was so hilarious because you get to a certain age and you talk about, I tore my rotator cuff. I'm getting my knee reconstructed. Yes, you get to a point in your life where it's all about what surgery you're having next.
Yeah, I had mentioned a few weeks ago that my son had a laser tag birthday party and we had spaces available for adults to participate. And I have never heard so many complaints about joint pain in my life when I offered all of those dads laser tag slots.
Yep. It's and it's very funny because I've heard that from my wife's friends for years now have been, like, oh, they were playing pickleball and they tore their Achilles or whatever. These are among the ladies, but I didn't hear it as much from the guys. And yeah, now when we hang out together, we're all talking about what you tore and what surgery you're getting, et cetera and so forth. Yeah, it's coming for all of us.
Well, as I always tell my husband, who was an athlete when he was younger, I am reaping the benefits of a very sedentary lifestyle.
That's right. Your joints are not wasting away.
That's right.
They're nice and sturdy. You preserve them for now. This is your time to shine, Sona.
Yes, exactly. I'm thriving.
Exactly. Perimenopausal, but thriving nonetheless.
But my knees are fine.
Exactly. But you'll have good knees. All right. So I think that's most of what I wanted to bring up. Is there anything that we wanted to touch on? Oh, a couple of things, actually, now that I've mentioned it. A couple of things. One is, for some reason, we're still kind of wondering about, or at least bringing up, the relationship status on the teens. So the son and his girlfriend, who got together last season, are kind of on the outs. She had this long-term boyfriend. Looks like he's not in the picture right now. So I assume there's going to be more romantic relationship there. I do imagine that they are going to at some point hang out with, or become at least aware of, if not straight up friendly, with this teenage daughter, Ash's daughter. So that's definitely going to happen. But one more thing I also wanted to bring up is, of course, there's so many characters in the show, by the way, that they're continuously developing. And one that I should have brought up is Coop's sister,
Right.
and what did you think about that dynamic? I thought that's interesting where you have her, Mel is trying to find her a job that pays better than at the bar and gets her a job at the school as a substitute or temporary music teacher. And everybody's on board with this. Like even the principal's like, oh yeah, I've seen her perform. Sure, let's do an interview. And how Coop is protective of her. Do you think Coop is being protective, or that Coop needs to be he's so comfortable being in that role where he's there protecting his sister? And, of course, it's similar what he did with his family where he's martyring himself. I have to steal money to protect them, right? What did you think of all that?
I actually have a completely different take on it, which is maybe unfairly colored by my own personal experience with people with various mental health disorders. I think Coop, whether right or wrong, I take Coop's side. A job with regular hours where people are counting on you is not a job for someone that struggles with those issues.
I agree.
There might be more going on, but that was my initial reaction.
Yeah, I mean, I took the other position. Not that you're wrong, right? He has seen her, like we saw last season, right? She seemed to be fine, and then she reverted and went back with her ex and all that trouble. He's like have his family and everything. So obviously he's had to be there to pick up the pieces when her parents mess her up again, or this ex-boyfriend messes with her. So I understand that aspect of it. But at the same time, she's an adult and they're hiring her. And if she doesn't show up for work for a whole entire week or shows up late every single day and they want to fire her, then she can still go and perform at the bar, and which she'll probably be doing anyway.
But then sometimes that person will be spiraling because of that. And then the consequences of that spiraling will fall to him.
On him, yes. So I see both sides of it, but I understand.
I think if you have known a person in your life where you're just never sure what version of that person you're going to get on any given day, again, I'm not saying the show is going for this, but I connect with the reasoning that, and maybe it is born of protectiveness as well, that is not a good situation for you. So why are you putting yourself in it?
Yeah. I take your point. And you're right, because in the end, like it's not her parents that are going to be there to help her out. He's the one who's going to have to pick up the pieces again. And everybody else gets to be like, oh, she looks great. Let's give her a chance.
She tried. Yeah, she tried.
And but he's the one who's going to have to really deal with it. So,
but again, fully disclose, I may be bringing my own personal baggage into that.
No, I think it's a valid perspective either way. All right. So I think that's all. Now, really, the last thing I wanted to bring up.
Yeah, I will say maybe if she stays on her meds, though, it's not a problem, which I think is the point Amanda Pitt was making, is that she seemed to have it under control. That's
the other reason I kind of lean that way as well, is that some time has passed since season 1. So apparently she's been controlling this for a period of time, right? So you can't just be like, you can never work again because you could relapse. What are you going to do? You wouldn't call it relapse, but I guess whatever you would call that.
Hey, they let
Olivia Munn become a real estate.
Carrie worked for the CIA in Homeland, right? So if she could handle that, this woman can be a music teacher.
I was going to say, if Olivia Munn could sell real estate, so hey, there you go.
No, I was thinking if Carrie Gull was going off her meds.
Oh, of course. Way off her meds all the time.
Yeah.
She didn't have anybody that had to deal with that, though, at home. She was just living by herself, at least.
True. But she was putting national security at risk every time.
That's true. We were all paying the price for that one. Okay. So, we'll pick it up from there next week. And everybody out, want to peace out? I want Sona to spoil this Imperfect Women series with me. So if you have been watching that, stay tuned. Otherwise, we will catch up with you next week. The Pitt episode will be podcast episode will be published within the next day or so. And then, of course, we're covering DTF and continuing to cover this show. Oh, and of course, we'll also discuss Euphoria, at least for a little while. I don't know how long I'll be able to make it through that show, but we'll see how long we can make it there and at least cover the premiere. If not, And we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Okay, Sona. So Imperfect Women, what has it been going? And give me your feedback.
Well, as I said, I'm one episode behind, and now you've piqued my interest in watching the new episode. Although I do think I'm going to see it through regardless. It's just a matter of when. But wow, it is not good. And I don't have much of substance to spoil here. My thoughts are on a very superficial level. Like, for example, Kerry Washington, so beautiful, yet they have butchered her hair here. I don't know what's happening. The outfit's also very strange. There's just a lot of weird stuff going on. There's a lot of adult characters acting in fairly immature ways. I don't think it's going to be a satisfying end to the mystery of who killed the friend. It's like they were going for a Big Little Lies type of situation. Yeah. There are a lot of parallels, but the sophistication just isn't there.
Yeah, my question to you was, I didn't make it through the whole first episode. And when we discussed it briefly, I was saying, like, I didn't hate it. But what I had to say was, a lot of times I'll opt out of a show. First of all, the reviews weren't great. So I thought that it wasn't going to suddenly get great if I wasn't already engaged. But it's some of the things you were mentioning. I felt there was a really lack of polish in coming up with an interesting way to tell the story. And early on, I didn't even know what I was supposed to be paying attention to. Similarly, like you said with Kerry Washington, like I find these actresses very appealing in general. Wasn't really interested in any of these characters, or their performances weren't really elevating the material in any way. And it just felt very boilerplate compared to so many of these other similar books that have been adapted. There was nothing that was specifically a good hook for me. They're introducing suspects like very early on, like halfway through episode 1, there was already like multiple suspects that they're raising. And I'm like, I don't even care about these characters yet. And you're trying to be like, is it this guy or this guy? I'm like, I don't even know who these, we've seen them talk to each other before like the murder happens, or supposedly the death happens. And then the investigation begins. We've only seen them interact for like 5 minutes. I'm like, I just had no idea what I was even supposed to be vested in at that point. It's as if like and maybe this is compelling, by the way, what I was about to say is actually compelling on its face. It's as if just the idea that you've been friends for a really long time and one of your friends, dies unexpectedly and maybe was murdered, and then how that really throws a wrench into your life. That, of course, is compelling, no doubt about it. But it really felt like we're just supposed to just go on premise and be like, okay, but I don't know anything about these people yet. And like the Kerry Washington character in like scene 2, she's hooking up with this guy from work. And it just was, I didn't even know what I was supposed to be paying attention to, honestly. So
they definitely have, in their defense, developed the characters more. I'm not sure that development helps or makes the show better, but I do think that's something that has happened.
They have talked to each other since then.
No, we have learned more of the backstory of the characters. Sure.
Oh, I assumed. Yeah. That's why I was curious to get your read.
Yeah.
Because it really felt like, again, this is more like the style of the show that was bothering me, in the fact that they're throwing us in and supposed to care about people like on their face. Because I assume that over the course of the show, we're going to have to inevitably show those relationships, how they met each other, what's been happening recently, conversations that one saw that the other didn't see. I get all that. It just felt like that we were basically, in the context of the show itself, they go out for drinks one night. Oh, we never get to hang out anymore. She's dead. And I'm like, okay, not quite vested enough yet. But like I said, I didn't even finish the first episode, so I could be prejudging, but I
will definitely finish it. So I will keep you updated.
Yeah, let me know.
My expectations are extremely low. I feel like this should have been a show that's on during the summer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't recommend anybody put time into this, but for whatever reason, I'm going to go with it.
The other thing I think is odd, and we can talk about it just for briefly, is like release schedules themselves. I think, like, for example, I did not finish Scarpetta, but it's been very popular. I think Scarpetta probably could have been a good week-to-week watch, because the mystery's kind of drawn out, and there's aspects of this going back and forth in history where you see somebody have an interaction now, then we see them the first time they met, and then they're like, oh, wait, there's this history there. And you can leave that almost as a little hook for the next episode. But Prime, most of the time, goes binge and drops everything at once. And Apple always goes week to week, always goes week to week. And the reason I say that is because, to your point, maybe if this came out in the summer or something and they put it out as a binge,
I would definitely binge it. Absolutely.
Right. And maybe that is more realistic than being like, this is a 10 week prestige watch week to week. I'm like, maybe you can't keep people engaged for 10 weeks. It doesn't seem. And by the way, I can't know for sure, but it really feels like you just look at where they aggregate conversations on whether it's Rotten Tomatoes. It says, here's the shows that got the most social media conversation this week. Here's the ratings that we do see on streaming charts, and consolidate those things. And you can kind of tell there's always like the same 4 or 5 shows at any given time that have a lot of conversation, like the Pitt, for example. And then sometimes they have massive conversation, like Paradise had a twist in the plot. And then like for 1 week, it was definitely the most talked about show on TV. This show very much, and other Apple series as well, just seemed to kind of like float along under the radar. And maybe if it was a binge, at least because people could finish it, it would catch some traction somewhere. So it's
because you know what was a binge that did get traction and was also not good at all? The Perfect Couple.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Perfect Couple was terrible, but it wasn't terrible. Actually, it was entertaining in its ways. But so that's a really good example of how. But Netflix is just so good at that. I watched the Something Really Bad Is Going to Happen on Netflix last week, and finished it off over the course of the weekend. About halfway through, I didn't know if I was going to finish it, but I did. And that's a perfect example of something that it's their number one show on Netflix right now. And it's not a massive hit, but it's doing well, obviously. And if it was week to week, I would not have finished that show.
Right.
Since it was there, I'm like, all right, I'll just finish this. But it's I'm halfway through. I'm going to finish it now. But that is, and it was pretty good. I actually didn't dislike it. It should have been like a movie, not a series, but I didn't dislike it, like I said. And that works because it's a binge. So sometimes I think if you watch the show and you're like, this works as a binge, I think streamers have to be more flexible about what they go week to week with and what they do as a binge. So, anyway, that's my free advice too, that no one cares about. All right, Sona, thank you again. Have a great trip. I hope there's no delays on that flight. Yeah. And we'll see if maybe we run into each other down in Florida.
Sounds good.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care.